right? So that you can learn what doesn't work so that you can start implementing the things that work and then creating a repeatable process. So when people when business owners, entrepreneurs, sales professionals go to talkwithpatrick.com, they set up a strategy session with me. A lot of times the first thing they think we're going to talk about is sales strategy or marketing strategy or business strategy. But a lot of times it's having that mindset, starting with the attitude of what does a $1 million producer, what does a 7-figure entrepreneur who's scaling or looking to scale, where do we have to start in terms of the mindset? Because a lot of times the mindset is where the miss happens and where they're off the mark. And it's natural for us to really get sucked down by those moments where you said you're kind of in that circle of you're going up and to the right and then you get knocked down. And when you get knocked down, to think that, hey, I'm on the wrong path. And a lot of times you're not on the wrong path. It's just that failure, if you want to call it that temporary failure or setback is feedback to say, okay, I should do this differently, or perhaps I need to come at it from a different angle. So, as somebody who's from day one in my life, really probably for as young as I can remember, year 2, 3, whatever of my life, I've had to find different ways around adversity, whether it be tying my shoes differently than everybody else because I couldn't watch somebody else do it, brushing my teeth differently, putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush differently.
Welcome to the Build It to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe the key to scaling and compounding your wealth in life starts every single day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. My name is Brett Swartz. Every episode, we are joined by the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires, or billionaires. They share their secrets, wisdom, and insight with us. We can all level up, make a bigger impact to help more MVPs. I'm excited about our next guest. He's in Florida, and he is an author, speaker, and a coach. And he's on a mission to inspire us today that if he can do it, then we can do it. In fact, our title is called If I Can Do It, You Can Do It. He's a best-selling author. He's a speaker. He's a coach. And he's going to help us to take another step in the way of success. Please welcome to the show with me, Patrick Engasser. Patrick, how are you doing?
Great, Brett. Thanks for having me on. Big fan of the show.
Excellent. And for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, maybe just give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus.
Sure. So I've been blind since birth, so that's usually the first thing people notice when I walk in a room is I'm either got a guide dog or a mobility cane. So really my background is in sales. I started in the outside sales industry and insurance sales 15 years ago as an agent working from the ground up. I really had very minimal success in the first year or two, just was a struggle. So probably anybody who's been in sales can relate to that at some point in their career. And then I hired a business and sales coach and changed my career. I went from the 500s in terms of accounts closed out of about 615 agents to the number one account closer in 14 months and totally changed my life. So then I went and became a district manager for a Fortune 500 company, training top-rated salespeople for 10 years. And then after a decade doing that, started my own business as a speaker and coach. So I do a lot of motivational speaking on helping people get unstuck, really take action to change their lives and overcome adversity. And obviously the title of my book, If I Can Do It, You Can Do It. If a blind dude from Buffalo, New York, which is where I was born and raised, where it snows 6 months out of the year, if I can build a 6-figure business, then anybody can do it. So.
Excellent. Absolutely. Let's dive right in. I'm already inspired. So what's the number one secret or piece of wisdom to getting unstuck?
I think the biggest thing is just if you allow your excuses, which we all have, right? We all have something that can be turned into an excuse. And as human beings, we will do that. It's the easiest path. As I would say, human beings are like water. We'll just find the easiest path of the least resistance. Making excuses as to why we don't take action is the easiest path. So if you let those excuses, if you let them grow legs, they will. You have to be ruthless at getting rid of the excuses in your life, in your business, in your relationships, so that you can take action, because execution doesn't happen unless you take action. A lot of people are waiting for clarity. I think that was my problem early on. I was waiting for clarity, waiting for confidence, to feel confident. And you don't feel confident, you build confidence by taking action and then making adjustments along the way. Most people will say, I'll take action when I'm ready, when I'm confident, when I have clarity. No, you'll gain clarity and confidence once you start taking action. and saying, hey, you know what, I did this the wrong way, I got to go the other direction. But at least you took action and figured out that was the wrong direction, rather than waiting for 3 years to figure out that you're ready to get started. So that's the biggest thing I can say, is take action every day to move you closer to your goals. And your results from the action or lack thereof will give you the information to make adjustments as you go.
Love it. I have two thoughts on this. Number one, I've heard a quote that momentum is greater than the sum total of all of our strategy, leadership, and resources combined.
I love that.
When you hear that, what comes to thoughts on taking action? First question, but then the second part of this is Ray Dalio talks about this process of how he built his companies and helps others build companies, and it was, you set out, you have a goal, and you set out and you go sprinting towards that action. And then ultimately you're going to trip at some point. You're going to trip and fall if you're going fast enough and you're going. And then when you trip, you're going to then diagnose, like, what happened. Like, so goals, problem, diagnose, basically recalibrate or replan, right? And then go again, right? And it's this loop that's a circle loop that's falling backwards and then going up and falling backwards and going up, and it's going up and to the right. But there's times when you feel like you're going backwards. Walk us through those two thoughts.
Yeah, so it's a great point that you make, because I love that quote, by the way, but I wrote that one down. But it's something that I think most people, they're thinking about. They think strategy is what's going to change their business. And look, there's part of that is true, but as you just said, it's momentum from really moving forward, taking action, and then learning from that action or the results from that as fast as you can, right? So that you can learn what doesn't work, so that you can start implementing the things that work, and then creating a repeatable process. So when people go to, when business owners, entrepreneurs, sales professionals go to talkwithpatrick.com, they set up a strategy session with me. A lot of times the first thing they think we're going to talk about is sales strategy or marketing strategy or business strategy. But a lot of times it's having that mindset, starting with the attitude of, what does a $1 million producer, what does a 7-figure entrepreneur who's scaling or looking to scale, where do we have to start in terms of the mindset? Because a lot of times the mindset is where the miss happens and where they're off the mark. And it's natural for us to really get sucked down by those moments where you said you're kind of in that circle of you're going up and to the right, and then you get knocked down. And when you get knocked down, to think that, hey, I'm on the wrong path. And a lot of times you're not on the wrong path. It's just that failure, if you want to call it that temporary failure or setback, is feedback to say, okay, I should do this differently, or perhaps I need to come at it from a different angle. So, as somebody who's from day one in my life, really probably for as young as I can remember, year 2, 3, whatever of my life, I've had to find different ways around adversity, whether it be tying my shoes differently than everybody else because I couldn't watch somebody else do it, brushing my teeth differently, putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush differently. That's given me perspective to work with entrepreneurs and business professionals. I didn't think of that way when I was 3, obviously. But looking back on it, being a problem solver and looking at problems from a different angle and being willing to think outside the box is really what is my superpower. And it's built over a lifetime of having to solve simple problems that became bigger just because of the adversity that I was facing. So I would just say, when it comes to building momentum, it's, as you said, about building action and then not losing not taking your eyes, so to speak, off your why. Why are you doing what you do? Because if it's just to make money, that's not going to pull you through when the adversity hits. It has to be for a bigger purpose, to make an impact, to change lives, or to solve a problem that's going to make a difference. Obviously, making money and the lifestyle that can give you is part of it. But I always encourage people, get past the number in the bank account, because that's just a scoreboard. You have to have something bigger than that to pull you through, because when that adversity hits, it's going to hit, as you just said. It's a matter of time, especially if you're moving at warp speed. You're going to get knocked down at some point. How do you respond during those times? Because that's really what separates the adults, the grown-ups, from the kids, is the people who are able to pick themselves up and say, okay, I'm going to try this a little bit different. We're going to get right back to it, right back on the horse.
We're speaking with Patrick Engasser. I'm going to spell it for you. It's Engasser. He's a best-selling author. If I can do it, you can do it. And you can get with Patrick by going to patrickengasser.com, learn about his speaking, coaching, and his testimonials. You know, a verse comes to mind: "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you're facing trials of many kinds, for it's the testing of your faith that helps you, you know, that produces, you know, growth basically in our faith, and so that we're mature, not lacking anything." And you said it, you know, as soon as you know that there's a challenge and this is a problem, there's a failure, right? There's something ahead of you, and not to think that you're in the wrong direction necessarily, but it's giving you feedback, and it's live feedback. It could be you're in the wrong direction, right? You know, and diagnose that, you know, look at that, but now it's an opportunity to grow, right? But if you never take that action, if you're never moving, then you're not going to get the clarity and the confidence. So I think we capture that part of it. What's kind of the next, you know, secret or wisdom here to your wisdom when it comes to the book?
Well, I love your the quote from Scripture. I'll just say that I'll just basically double down on that. A lot of times, especially people who are people of faith, like myself and like obviously yourself, or you wouldn't have quoted that, when they're facing adversity, they feel like, hey, as you said, I'm going in the wrong direction, or, you know, God's not with me, or, you know, I'm a failure. When in reality, that's most of the time our biggest, strongest growth periods happen after that adversity, right? If we can take that and learn something, and I pretty much can tell you most entrepreneurs, and you already know this, who listen to your show, they've had this experience. They've been through this adversity. They were frustrated by it, but then they learned something really significant from it, and they've moved forward into the best parts, the best seasons of their business building right after that. I've found that has happened to me time after time after time, and it's difficult to get in the mindset of when you're going through adversity to realize that it's a learning experience, because it doesn't feel like that at the time. But when you can start to figure that out ahead of time and ask the question, you know, God, what can I learn from this? Or to yourself, what can I learn from this experience? What is the world trying to teach me? What is business trying to teach me from this experience? The next step that you just asked me about is really to focus on what you're the best at, right? I call it your core genius, which is something I talk about in the book, which is getting really focused on the 20%. Sometimes it's even narrower, 10%, but usually it's about, we've all heard the 80-20 rule. It's probably overused, but that's for good reason, because it's true. Usually 70, 80, sometimes even 90% of your results or your outputs are going to come from about 20% or fewer of your inputs. So what is the highest level thing that you can be doing, that you should be doing within your business? And then how do we find other people who can support you to delegate to get wisdom from about other areas, and to also turn over and let go of those things, which is sometimes the hardest part, especially for founders who are entrepreneurs who, you know, this business is their baby. That I know, because I've built businesses, and I love building businesses. But the hardest part sometimes is letting go of control and really zoning in and focusing like a laser on the part of your business that you're best at, because there's usually about 20% of your business that really, if you're focused on that 80, 90, as close to 100%, it can't be 100, but as close to 100% as possible, where you're blocking out and filtering out all the noise, and you're just signaling in on that most important part that you're the best at, your core genius, that's when your business is going to grow exponentially. So really finding that core genius, defining it, and then zoning in on it.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper on that. So how do you diagnose that properly, or what are some of the key core questions that you would talk with entrepreneurs about and then about that, and then also just talk about the season of change. You know, there's different people, different seasons, who are, you know, either looking at retiring in the legacy stage, they're going from the warrior king to sage, right? And they're you know, we help people who exit large assets, and they're going through huge capital gains, estate tax challenges that we're helping them with. That's kind of our core business model, right? We help design, we use an engine that helps people to defer tax strategy, IRS code to do that. But more, I'm learning it's different seasons, and they may have been a warrior king for 10, 20, 30 years, but now they're moving into the sage stage, and so they do need to cultivate and or definitely delegate, but maybe it's shifting their core genius. How do you get a sense for what it is at this point that they should be focusing on?
It's a great question. So I would say the first thing is, let's go back to, let's say someone's building a business, and then we'll get to the retirement or the shifting from the warrior king into the next step of their journey. I would say, but in any situation, what is the thing that you're really good at? Ask that question, because most people don't take a lot of time. I know entrepreneurs, we're going 100 miles an hour, so sometimes we don't take as much time to stop and think. And I would say even take a day, block out a day, whatever it is that inspires you, whether it's sitting by the water or it's being on top of a mountain or whatever it is that you do. You're someone who likes to go gliding. Do something where you can clear your head and not be surrounded by the day to day, and just say, what are the things that I'm really best at? If I had to narrow it down and be ruthless and cut the fat away from the things that I'm wasting time on, or maybe not wasting time, but I'm doing $50 an hour, $30, $40 an hour, $100 an hour work versus $1,000 an hour, $5,000 an hour work, that I could invest in somebody else who's better at or as good at those things as I am, train them, give them the skills to take over that aspect of my business. But this area where I'm investing my most valuable asset, which is my time, my finite resource of my time, this is where the business is going to most grow and grow the fastest and scale the fastest, because of the fact that I'm not being a bottleneck anymore. I'm pouring gasoline on the fire in the area of my business where I can make the biggest impact. So what is the area where you make the biggest impact on your business? And then I also ask the question, what are some things that you shouldn't be doing and probably should have given up a long time ago, but you're hanging on to them because you feel like you're the one who, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done right. Because sometimes we just need to get rid of that mentality and let go of that control. And then what's the thing that often for entrepreneurs, what's the thing that you're not only best at, but that feeds you the most, right? If it's something that feeds you, it's usually something you're probably very good at. Sometimes that's not the case, but I'd say 9 out of 10 times it is. You like it because you're really good at it. It's not that hard for you. It's something that just naturally comes to you. Really explore, is that something that you should be investing more time in? Because if it is, it probably is also part of your core genius. Now fast forwarding or shifting into your second question, which is, how do we prepare for, if not exit strategy, maybe moving into more of that, I'm turning over my business to someone else, or I'm looking for to set up estate planning and things like that. I would say the biggest thing, now we've acquired the wealth, we're having some significant success. How do we keep the money that we have and continue to have that money work for us? And you teach amazing strategies on this, but the biggest thing I would say, it sounds very simple and obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do it, and that's why this part becomes a challenge for them, is just seek expert counsel. Find somebody who's already done what you're doing or what you're looking to do in that area of your business. Don't be afraid to hire experts, and don't be afraid to invest the financial capital to make sure you find the best that you can, because you don't want to learn from mistakes. So I always say trial and error is the most expensive way to learn. Right? We can all learn that way. Sometimes early on we have to learn that way because we don't have the money to invest, or the resources to invest in a better way. But at this point, if you're successful and you have a 7-figure business or 8-figure business, or even larger, and you're not investing in someone who can be an expert to help you walk through that process, take you by the hand step by step, and help you learn from other people's mistakes instead of your own mistakes, it's going to be way more expensive than you investing in. The mistakes, the challenges that you're going to run into, that you're going to get bumps and bruises along that journey, are way more expensive than that investment, even though the investment might seem like a chunk of change. So I would just say, wherever you're able to invest in your business, that starts at day one. People wait too long to invest in their business. But having that mentality of I'm consistently investing in myself. The people who become 6, 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure success stories, it's because they're usually willing to learn from other people's mistakes. Find someone who's a couple miles up the road that they want to travel and say, hey, how did you get around this obstacle? How did you navigate this situation? I would never encourage someone to go into a, kind of changing roles from warrior king to now I'm going to look at how I protect this wealth, how I exponentially grow this, have my money work for me, and then estate planning without hiring an expert. That's the first thing I would do, and then actually implement what they tell you to do.
Excellent, Patrick. That was amazing. Again, everyone, you can learn more about Patrick by going to patrickengasser.com, speaking, coaching, and his events that he has up with his book. His book is titled, If I Can Do It, You Can Do It. If I Can Do, You Can Do It. Hey, Patrick, what haven't I asked you so far that you want to make sure you share before we go to the lightning round?
Yeah, I think I would just say that, and I think most entrepreneurs are probably already doing this, but we get inconsistent at it at times. And I can just tell you, when I'm firing on all cylinders, it's because I start my day the right way. And that's going to be a little different for everybody. You're going to probably, your morning ritual is going to be a little different from mine, whether it's prayer, meditation, reading something positive, reading something first thing in the morning that is going to move you forward. It sounds a little hokey to someone who's never done it, but even just a gratitude ritual for 2, 3 minutes. What am I grateful for? Because as entrepreneurs, it's very easy for us to look toward our goals and focus on that horizon, right? It might sound silly coming from the blind guy, but we all have that going on where we're focused like a laser on our goals, and that's what makes us successful. But sometimes it's really important to look in the rearview mirror, take a look back at the shoreline and say, how far have I come? Being grateful for those things, because when you start to be grateful for the things you've already accomplished and recognize those things, it's easier to see solutions on how you can get to the next level. Because it's like, hey, I've already done this before in a different capacity. I can apply what I've learned in the past to this. I can get there. When we're only focused on, I think Benjamin Hardy refers to it as when we're only focused on the gap, not the gain. We're not looking at the things we've gained in the past. We're only looking forward at the gap to our goals. We don't recognize the power that we've already.
Patrick, can you talk about, and I know this is, I don't know if it's an odd question or not, but in your mind, when you're setting goals and what you're picturing in your mind, or how you picture it, or what your mind is doing, like, I don't even know how, I don't even know how to quite say it, but maybe you can, how do you do that? How do you teach that from a level of, I would only think it only, I don't know. I don't even know how to ask the question, but maybe what do you do from your perspective, and how can you help us enhance the way that we visualize?
Yeah, that's a great question. Probably a question you never expected to ask the blind guy, right? How do I visualize?
Right. Right.
But in reality, it's all of our brains think in pictures. Even though I can't see, and I've never seen what an elephant looks like. I mean, I've felt models of what an elephant looks like, but my brain still, when you say the word elephant, still pictures what I believe an elephant looks like. It doesn't picture the word typed out in Braille, ELEPHANT. So the brain doesn't know how to think any other way. It thinks in pictures. So the more that you can visualize, sit down, close your eyes, take some time alone, and think about what your goals will look like, what you want to accomplish, and then beyond just the financial aspects of it, what will that enable you to have? What will that life look like? Because the reason people aspire to be millionaires, billionaires, very successful isn't because of the dollar amount in their bank account. That brings security and makes us feel great. But what really makes us feel good is the lifestyle and the freedom that comes with having those dollars, right? And the impact that making the difference that those dollars will bring can have on the world. So sit down and actually take some time to picture the future you want. And then I would say, take pictures of or test drive that goal. I mean, if your goal is I want to have, a private jet, or my goal is I want to own a helicopter, or my goal is I want to have a private chef, like get a private chef for the night, and have some friends over and experience that in your home, right? I did that with my wife a few months ago. I had a chef prepare a dinner. It's an awesome experience, even if it's just one time. Just do it. If you want to have a certain boat, then go out and ride on, go out on that type of a boat. right? And experience, feel the feeling, get your brain in the mindset and to the place where it can feel that feeling and experience and sense all of those different sensory inputs that'll come into your brain when you have that experience. That's why car sales companies that sell cars, that's why they have you test drive the car, right? Because they know that you're going to have that actual experience. So taste the dream, at least take a taste of it, however you can do that. Schedule a test drive for whatever it is that your dream is. And the last thing I would say is create what I call in my book elephant goals. So elephant goals, we all heard the cliche how to eat an elephant one bite at a time. Hopefully we're not actually eating elephants, but I'm pretty sure that's illegal. But the idea that you have this big goal, which your brain has a tough time really grappling with, that we can get there because it's a distance away and it's a big goal, and then break that down into the daily, the weekly, the monthly, the weekly, and the daily, so that every day, here's my goal. But the big key is keep the pictures that you've taken or that you've printed off from online or that you put as your screensaver, the music that you listen to that's going to inspire you, all the things that are going to keep that vision of that elephant goal in front of you while working on the bite-sized piece each day. That's what I teach coaching members to do, and it's something that's made a huge impact on my life and others.
Amazing, Patrick. Let's go to the lightning round. Here we go. Knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget make sure to tell yourself to do?
I would have hired a business coach a lot sooner and started with someone who'd already been there teaching me rather than learning from trial by error the first 2 years of my business.
Excellent. Question number 2, what's the number one book you've recommended the most in the past year?
Once we get past the Bible, which is always number one for me, but once we get past that, I would say 10x is easier than 2x by Benjamin Hardy and Daniel Sullivan. A fantastic book.
Absolutely. I just actually read that on Audiobook. I loved it. Question number 3. Yeah. Question number 3. What are you most curious about right now?
I have a 3-year-old son, so he's asking me all kinds of questions about space because he loves space right now. So it's just the vastness of the universe, and really gotten into star formation and all kinds of crazy stuff like that because my 3-year-old asks me questions that I don't know the answers to.
I just heard up my son who's 7. He was just watching a video on black holes, and he sees something like a super black hole. I don't know exactly what it's called, but something was like it's like a 100 million or 100 something, at least $100 million times the size of the sun.
Yes.
And my mind, it exploded. I'm like, what? I stopped because he was telling my wife, and I said, "Do we say that again?" And I guess that's out there. So super black holes, everybody, look them up. It'll talk about a big elephant goals. We should some super black hole goals. Keep going here. Next question. Number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by.
I think the biggest one is lead from the front. Like, nobody's going to follow you being in a leadership position for 10 years in the insurance industry. I learned, if there's managers and leaders. Most people are managers. The title is cute, but people want to follow someone who's willing to get in the trenches and do the work with them and lead by example. You know this being a parent, Brett, as I do. You can tell your kids to do something all day, but if they watch you do the opposite, they're going to do the opposite.
Absolutely. We're on the way to church yesterday, and my daughter didn't want to sit in the middle, and so they were arguing about who sits in the middle, and she talked about 3 years ago how her brother got to sit for multiple years. I'm like, 3 years ago, we were in California 3 years ago. That was a long time ago, and so they started to argue, and I paused for a second. I said, you know what? How about this? I'll go sit in the middle. So it's three sets of seats. And so I got out and I sat in the middle and I held both their hands because the ones that were arguing about it, right? And I was in the middle and they were all jazzed and excited and it was a big fun thing. And it's like I could tell her that and demand that she be, more generous to her younger brother or whatever. But it's like, what does it matter? Like, why don't I sit in the middle? And it was a fun experience. And I should, sit in the middle more often, right? Instead of arguing about the seats.
I love that. That's amazing. Leading from the front, right?
Yep. Next question. Number one tool you're using for AI and the number one way you're using it.
Yeah, I'd still use, call me old school, I guess, 2 years ago, but I still use ChatGPT all the time. It's just it's probably familiarity. It's super easy to use, works really well with my screen reading program. And I'd say the biggest thing is just, to save time, right? I mean, if you could use AI for all kinds of crazy things. and it's going to be even more exponential over the next 3, 5, even 10 years. But I would just say the biggest thing is get it to save you time. Get it to, for me, it's just collect information that would take me way longer to collect on my own, so that I have it in 60 seconds all at my fingertips, or some cases 6 seconds, as opposed to taking 20, 30 minutes of my time. So just use it like any other tool, of delegation or someone you bring on. Just treat the people better than the robots, hopefully. It's just to compress time as much as you possibly can. It's your most valuable asset. It's finite, at least in this planet, in this form. So, as much as you can value that and remember that on a daily basis and use the tools to do that, I think is the best way.
Amazing. And very last question, we'll wrap it up. Patrick, after all your success, helping all the people you've helped, how do you best keep a mindset of stewardship over ownership?
I love that. I think the biggest thing is, for me, a lot of that comes from my faith, from you as well, I can tell. Just remembering that, my time on this earth is finite. It's if you think of the history of the earth and the world, however big you believe it is, we know it's a lot longer than our lifetime, at least. There's 6,000 years of recorded history. Bottom line is, my time is a very small fraction of time, and all that's true for all of us. We all have a day where this is going to end. So for me, the biggest impact I can make on the world is my goal. I can get selfish like everybody else. We're all humans. It's okay to recognize that and take a step back and say, you know what, am I doing this with a servant's heart? Am I doing this by being a steward of, whether it be the money or the time or the relationships I have, or am I doing it just to acquire and mass wealth for my own benefit? So if you think of it this way, that at the end of your life, you're going to look back, or others are going to look back on your life, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? What do you want and everybody says nice things, but do you want a funeral home that's packed with, where they can't get through the door because there's so many people, because you made such an impact on so many people's lives? Or do you want people to be like, yeah, that person was super rich financially, but they didn't really touch anybody's lives. They just amassed it for themselves. For me, I want to be remembered for the difference I made in people's lives, the impacts I made, and that people remember me for being a great dad, and a great husband, and a person who really cared about other people. That's what Jesus sends us into the world to do, is to make an impact on other people's lives and to look at other people as more important than ourselves. It's a tough thing to do, but to remember that all the resources we're given, whether it be our families, our money, our relationships, whatever it is, I look at it as it's not really mine. It's something that I'm borrowing, and God's trusting me to be a good steward of those things and pour into other people through that. If you do that, it's not possible to have a miserable life, or it's a lot harder, let's put it that way. And now, you feel in the moment like, hey, I want to do what's good for me, but when you start thinking about other people, your life just starts to expand. At least that's what I found, in a huge way. So this has been an honor being on here. I really appreciate great conversation, some of the better questions I've had asked. If anybody would like a strategy session with me for your audience, I'll waive my fee, talkwithpatrick.com. Would love to help anyone with any advice or anything I can help with. It's been an honor. Thanks.
Patrick, that was incredible. I got to ask one more bonus question, because
Sure.
It just kind of came as you were speaking. And maybe you've had this asked before. I'm sure you have. But I mean, speaking, and I am a Christian and have faith that one day we'll be in heaven, for all who believe in Jesus, right?
Amen.
And call on His name for the salvation of their souls.
Amen.
But what do you think it will feel like to see for the first time in heaven, and how, and what are you most looking forward to seeing?
I'd say that, it's funny you asked this, because I just had this conversation with someone recently about, now with AI and stem cells and all the different technologies that are coming out, would I want my sight back? And I really wrestled with it in that moment, because I've always said no, but now that it's becoming more and more real, I'm like, I don't know. There's a real part of me that wants to see the face of God first. There's a part of me that wants to see the glory of God and all that comes from being in His presence first, before I see anything on this earth. But then there's always that curious side that's like, oh, I would like to see certain parts. I'd like to see what my son looks like, things like that. But I mean, I don't think it's going to make me love my kid or my wife anymore. So to answer your question, I think the biggest thing is just what is it like to be in the presence of the creator of the entire universe? We just talked about, hundreds of billions of, miles or whatever it was, or 100 billion times the size, or 100 million times the size of the sun. Like, there are trillions of stars out there. The DNA in your one cell of your body is, I think it's 2 trillion characters long if you were to spread it out. If you were to take all the 30 trillion or 40 trillion cells in your body, take all the DNA out of them, and take that code and put it end to end, it would go to Neptune and back, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 times. I think the numbers. Look it up. It's a crazy, insane statistic. The one who created all that out of nothingness, just to be in his presence and just see what that glory looks like, I can't even begin to imagine it with my finite human brain, and it's something that I'm excited about. Doesn't need to happen tomorrow. I mean, I'm enjoying being here, but I know the next time is better, and I'm grateful for that. So.
Well, amen and amen. Patrick, can get I want to just thank you for the show. Engasser is how it's pronounced, and it's spelled Engasser. His book is If I Can Do It, You Can Do It. Thank you for being on the show. Connect with Patrick. Check out his book. Buy his book. I want to thank you for being on the show. Keep using your gifts and talents to inspire people for change and for action and for growth and impact. I also want to thank all of our listeners for listening to another episode of the Build It to Billions podcast. We're also streaming on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channels. And we're on this journey with you to scale from millions to billions so we can give more, all of it away to help MVPs, the most vulnerable people. I'm Brett Swartz. Please take action today. Please share this with someone that can inspire. And of course, we have a large exit in Bitcoin, business, real estate with at least $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. You're looking for a capital gains tax exit plan. We can help. Just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We'll talk to you all again real soon. Thanks now. Bye.